I'm probably about to make a lot of people upset, aren't I? Because, I mean, you read the thumbnail, you read the title of this video. My opinion's probably going to be very controversial. And keep in mind, this is coming from someone who loves old horror movies. So, even when it doesn't work for me, yeah, that's a problem. Does that make the movie bad? No, this is not a bad movie. This movie is good. Do not get me wrong. It is a good movie. It's just that after all the freaking praise that I've heard for decades about it, I was expecting something so much more. What I ultimately got was a fun little commodity for Halloween. And that's pretty much it. A one and done film. A extremely overrated gem, as some say. Maybe if I watch it 3 times, it might be a great movie. I don't know. But let's talk about Beetlejuice. This was my first time ever watching it, so no nostalgia goggles or anything like that. This is a first time watch perspective. This movie is good, but it is not great. And it's surely not a classic of the horror genre. Sorry. I have seen way, way better horror movies than this. And before you say, oh, it's PG, hello, Poltergeist exists. That had a PG rating, and that's a way better movie. But this, it's a fun, but very flawed little commodity. At its absolute best. So let's get it over with. What's up? What's happening? What's going on? Welcome back to Animation Station. I'm just everything animation, Queen TV movies as well. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Welcome to my review of Beetlejuice, one of the most iconic Tim Burton movies next to The Nightmare Before Christmas. And yes, I know that's technically a Henry Selick movie, but Tim Burton's name's on the friggin' box, so I'm gonna call it a Tim Burton movie. So, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one, obviously without spoiling anything. So, here's a pretty short written review. All I can say is I hope you enjoy and respect my opinion. It's just my opinion. If you love this movie, continue to love it. It's just another one of those classic movies that's just not for me. Well, that was pretty underwhelming. With Beetlejuice 2 right around the corner, I finally checked out the original for the very first time after having bought the DVD a long while ago during one of my many Goodwill hunts. And I had pretty high expectations knowing this is another one of those movies that's constantly praised to high heaven as a classic of the horror genre. And what I got was a movie that was definitely imaginative and morbid, but at best it's just a decent commodity rather than a masterpiece. Like, this movie does not have a lot of rewatch value for me. Sorry. The pros, solid acting, likable main characters. Like, I do like the two ghost characters, and I do like the Dietz daughter, played by Winona Ryder. I like those characters, and of course Beetlejuice, who is absolutely phenomenal in this movie. Michael Keaton is phenomenal as the ghoulish ghost with the most. So, like, he is Beetlejuice. I can see why this became one of his most iconic roles, because he absolutely owns every second he's on screen, just being as wild, explicit, and manic as he can possibly get away with, and it works to his benefit, 100%. So, yes, Beetlejuice is amazing in the Beetlejuice movie, making that very clear. Outstanding practical effects that are both impressive for the time and delightfully gruesome. This may be PG, but it is one of the hardest PGs you will ever see. Not as hard as something like Poltergeist, but it is a movie that definitely wears that PG rating like a badge of honor, because it has great gore effects. Like, you see faces get ripped off, you see all different kinds of body proportions, you see woman hanging from a noose holding a decapitated head. Like, there is delightful, gruesome effects and body horror. And that part is amazing. That's the part that I wanted to live up to expectation, and that's what it did. The effects in this movie are freaking outstanding. Absolutely. Not only that, all practical effects, zero CGI. Thank you, Tim Burton. Excellent gore and body horror despite being PG. Wonderfully imaginative set design. The design in this movie is great. Like, all the sets, all the different, like, rooms and places that they go to. Like, even the Dietz house itself is pretty cool. So, Yeah, definitely great, wonderfully imaginative and creative set design. A few good laughs, especially the famous Deo scene, which had me rolling on the floor. The Deo scene's hilarious. Like, that scene, that is the funniest scene in the movie, and I can see why now it's one of the most iconic parts of the movie, because it is freaking hilarious. So, that scene's great, but there's also a couple other good laughs in there. Beetlejuice gets a few good lines, and I mean, he gets to drop an F bomb in a PG movie. That is almost unheard of. Like, it can be funny. This movie has a lot of funny moments here and there. It's just not entirely funny, which is where it kind of falls flat. Original fun concepts, I mean, in an age where Hollywood wants to make people believe that originality is 100% dead, this is a nice shot of adrenaline to that system, because this is definitely 100% original. Nothing here feels like it was done in a million other movies, which is very refreshing. Great music, amazing music, like both the licensed music they chose and the original music from Danny Elfman. Yes, the same guy that brought us the amazing Batman 1989 score. And I'd argue Batman is a better movie, but that's just my own personal taste. An atmosphere that mostly balances being both goofy and spooky. Sometimes it tries to do both and it doesn't quite work, but most of the time it's balanced pretty well. Like, this movie has a lot of gruesome imagery, but it's mostly kind of lighthearted in tone. You're not gonna get like super vicious, violent stuff like you see in like a slasher or anything like that. But you are gonna get some things that are gonna push that PG rating. But it's mostly the imagery. The atmosphere itself, it does a good job being spooky and also being very goofy. So in other words, it's good. It's okay for kids to watch on Halloween. On Halloween only, when they actually want to be scared. And a decent ending. The ending's weird. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but it's decent. It's good enough. It's a solid ending. Now let's get to all the reasons why I think this movie doesn't work. The story's painfully slow. This is a story that they could have easily put more into than they did, and they didn't, and that's a problem. Like, the story itself, it may be original, but it meanders. It takes forever. It does not feel like this movie's what? Freaking, how long is this movie? It's only 92 minutes. Like, this is about the same length of the Mario movie. And yet, it feels like it's like 2-3 hours, because the story just moves at such a slow pace, and it can become so agonizing at times. The pacing is meandering. The pacing in this movie is slower than a snail taking a dump. The other human characters, as in the Dietz family minus Linda, and their associates, as in the other people in the house, are boring. Like I said, the acting is solid, but the other characters of the Dietz family, aside from Linda and the associates, are all like legitimately boring characters that I did not care about in the slightest. I'm sorry, they were just boring. Third act is rushed. The third act is all summed up in like the final 10-15 minutes. That is not enough for your movie to have a satisfying third act. It needs to be longer. Its off-the-wall bizarreness works to its detriment rather than its benefit. Yeah, that's this movie's biggest problem right there. It tries to be the most, for lack of a better term, and excuse my language, but batshit insane movie ever. But it ends up becoming so batshit insane that it becomes hard to really follow all that much. Like, it's really hard to explain, but, like, its bizarreness, while I admire its ambition, it works against it. It doesn't work for it as a benefit. It works against it, because it becomes so weird that it's just like, well, what the hell am I even watching? Like, that kind of bizarre. Writing is unimpressive. I am not at all impressed with the writing in this movie. Its script is very, very bland. Dialogue is mediocre, unless it's coming out of Beetlejuice's mouth. All the dialogue in this movie is kind of by the books, like you've seen in a million other movies. And it's not scary at all. I mean, kids would be scared by it from all the gruesome imagery, but it's not even that gruesome. And as someone who has seen a bunch of scary movies in his lifetime, yeah, this movie's not scary. I was expecting it to go a lot more hardcore because of all the praise it's gotten over the years, not to mention becoming so popular that it got a TV show back in the day. But it just doesn't work. Like, it's hard to explain, but it's just not scary. It has great imaginative design, but it is not scary. Maybe it's because I've seen so many hardcore gore fests over the years and actual terrifying movies, but I don't know, man. Even for a PG movie, I expected more. Again, Poltergeist exists, and that movie is still terrifying to this day. Overall, it is a pretty big letdown for me. Even as someone who absolutely adores old horror movies, this one struggled to keep my attention until the actual spookiness was happening on screen. I was expecting something amazing, but instead I got a movie that's nothing more than a decent one and done at best. And because of that, the movie's final verdict, it's going to get a little bit of a bump because of the amazing spectacle of the visual effects. But outside of that, it has just too many problems. And because of that, final verdict is no higher than a 6.5 out of 10. It is a decent, good enough movie. But it is not great, it's not a classic, it's not the most phenomenal thing ever, like you've been led to believe. Amazing effects just can't save a boring story. Add on the pacing issues, and you've got yet another classic movie that's just not for me. I admire the ambition, but it falls pretty flat, and it doesn't inspire much confidence in the sequel being any better, but I'll find out tomorrow. Please, sequel be better. I'm sick and tired of sitting through terrible sequels this year. I've sat through more terrible sequels this year than I think I ever have in my entire life. So, please, at least be good. If you can at least match this movie's quality of being decent, I will be nice to you. But if you are just another terrible 2024 sequel, I'm going to rip you apart. So, I do recommend the movie. I think it's worth at least one watch just to say that, well, you've watched Beetlejuice. But outside of that, I can't really see much rewatch value in it. Sorry. But I'm going to stick with Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline. Those movies are way better in my opinion. And heck, even Batman 1989 is better than this movie. Yeah, I said it. Because it's another one of those movies where it's visual spectacle over substance. Real shame. But, you know what? I'm just glad it's good. I'm glad it's not like a terrible dumpster fire. So, I mean, I guess I'll take what I can get, but man, I expected so much more. And I'm just left bitterly disappointed. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. Hope you enjoyed my review. If you continue to enjoy this movie, continue to enjoy it. It's just not for me. So, I'll see you guys next time when we see if the sequel is any better. See you tomorrow for Beetlejuice 2. I'm not calling it its actual title because its actual title is stupid. See you tomorrow for Beetlejuice 2.
We cannot take it anymore. The time has come to go. Prepare, we're ready for